She nudged him with her arm, telling him she was talking to him. He quickly sped off and told her to just fly properly or else he was going to leave her behind. He also warned her to not ask too much if she wanted to follow him. She didn't know what to say anymore, and they simply continued their flight. Back at home, Dong'er had realized that Yuhao was missing. She regretted not staying home with him and watching over him. She wondered where he had gone now and felt like it was all her fault. Word had spread about Yuhao's disappearance from the Sea Lord Pavilion. Dong'er had made quite a fuss and was describing how she had searched everywhere, even around the Sea Creator's Island, but she was still not able to find him. She was bawling her eyes out, saying that it was all her fault. She knew she should have watched over him and had no idea why somebody would take him away from her. Lao told her not to worry about him since nothing bad was going to happen to him. He pointed out that he had found something strange about his disappearance yesterday. There had been one other person that had disappeared along with him, and it was none other than Chuer. Dong'er could not believe what she was hearing. That was the one thing that she didn't want to think about again. One of the students assumed that they might have actually gone together, which could also imply something else. Bei quickly shut him up, saying that Yuhao was not the kind of person to change his heart so quickly. Lao sided with Bei, saying he was right. He felt like there was something fishy going on here. He wondered if Yuhao had, by any chance, been kidnapped by her. Meanwhile, Chior was watching Yuhao meditate. She gazed at him and thought he just looked like a normal man she saw every day. She also wondered why Dong'er liked him so much. He hadn't looked well today either, and she had never seen him make such faces before. She wondered who that friend of his was that made him this worried. She wondered if it was actually Dong'er, but to her she had looked completely fine. She took a bite of a pastry and noticed that it tasted different. Yuhao was trying to calm himself down. He knew that the more problems he faced, the more he could strengthen his mind, as this was the basis for mental training. He wouldn't have worried this much if it hadn't been related to Dong'er. As such, he could simply not just let it slide. He had completely made up his mind. No matter what stood in his way, even if he had to face death, he was still going to bring back the immortal herb. He opened his eyes and glanced at Chuer, before getting up and walking towards her. He took a bow, saying he was once again sorry for what had happened the previous day in the arena. Even if he had touched by accident, he was not going to run away from taking responsibility. But what he was doing right now was very important, and if she wanted to help him, then he would be grateful and accept it. Therefore, he wanted her to suppress her anger for now, and told her she could give him whatever punishment she wanted once they returned. She looked annoyed, asking him why he was acting like this. He was clearly the one who had taken advantage of her yesterday, and now he was making it look like she was the bad person. But if that's what he wanted, then she decided she was going to help him for now, and she would then later think about how she should punish him once they returned. He was glad to hear that she was willing to help. She told him that since she had come this far with him, he didn't even need to ask her any of that. He had said that he was going to Sunset Forest, so she wanted to know what exactly he was looking for there. Yuhao thought about the situation. She had said that she was willing to help him, and she was also strong and compatible with him for some soul fusion skills. He figured his success rate would increase with her. He told her he had a map that showed where they could find it, but before that, he pointed out that he still had the 3 soul bones they had received before on him. He figured they should just absorb them and increase their strength first. Back in the pavilion, Lao was talking about how he had always felt something strange about Chuer ever since she had arrived. Both her and Dong'er not only looked similar, but their names were similar as well. But what had really made him sure about her was when Dong'er had said that she didn't have any sisters. Also, there was the matter of Chuer's martial soul. He stated that he had never seen or heard anything like that before. All of this had made him come to the conclusion that she was full of mysteries. If Chuer was indeed a spy sent by someone, then they could definitely suspect that he had been kidnapped by her. He announced that they should act immediately. They had to find where they were headed before it was too late. Soon everyone had left to look for them, except for Bei. The elder asked him why he was still here, to which he inquired why he had to lie like that, telling everyone that Chuer had kidnapped Yuhao under the Sea Lord Pavilion's nose. Even if that was the case, Shrek wouldn't have been in the #1 place in the continent then. Lao began laughing out loud, saying he was right. He told him he was pretty good at analyzing situations and confirmed his suspicion. It was not possible for Chior to kidnap him under their watch. He was just making up an excuse to calm everyone down so that he could find a solution in the meantime. He had felt it when Yuhao had left this morning. He actually had gone by his own will, and he also seemed to be in a hurry. He hadn't thought of it much back then, but now it seemed like something had really happened. He asked Bei if he had been acting strangely for the past few days, to which he simply shook his head, saying no. At the same time, Yuhao and Chuer had absorbed the soul's bones. They could tell that every one of them had an amazing effect. Yuhao explained that the skills from those bones were really useful, and it also seemed to be beneficial to their own soul fusion skill. She agreed, saying it was extraordinary. The werewolf's left leg soul bone had an instant teleportation skill. using which one could teleport anywhere within a 10-meter radius. Even though they couldn't teleport large distances, it was still useful to speed up their travel. As for the second soul bone, they had been able to swap positions with themselves or others who had similar soul bones. Chuer told him that the skill she had received from the soul bone was excellent and that she didn't need the last soul bone, insinuating that he could use it for himself, or he could even give it to Donger. It was all up to him as she didn't want it anymore. He didn't even have to tell her whenever he gave it to her later. Yuhao in his heart knew that that would only be possible if he happened to get back safely. He decided it was time for them to head towards their current destination for now, the Sunset Forest. After finding out what was in the bag, Yuhao wanted to acquire the herb from the forest as soon as possible. The Sunset Forest was located to the northeast of the Sky Soul Empire, and in order to get there, Yuhao had to pass through the capital city of the Sky Soul Empire, which was known as Tiandu City. Since he was flying at breakneck speeds, he quickly caught the attention of the Empire Patrol Squad. One of the girls noticed Yuhao. Likewise, Yuhao also recalled that he had seen her in Stardust Forest. Her name was Mu Shui. However, the ordinary troops were no match for either Yuhao or Chuer. With just his spatial spirit ability, the two of them easily broke through and rushed off. Mu ordered her troops not to pursue them any further, since she knew that they didn't have any bad intentions. They would have been dead meat by now if that had not been the case. After half a day of continuous flying, the two finally arrived at their destination. Chuer asked him if this was really the place he wanted to go to. Yuhao confirmed it, saying that they still had to be careful. Judging from the map, the place they were heading for was going to be full of danger. She wondered what there was to fear in such a small forest, and reminded him that she had survived in Stardew Forest for an entire year. Yuhao sighed, and the two of them began walking towards their next destination. Bugs and wild beasts were roaming about. Chuer pointed out that the place only had a bunch of 10-year-old soul beasts, and it seemed pretty deserted there. Yuhao agreed, saying that they should have been rather deep into the forest by now, but they still hadn't encountered a single strong soul beast in the hour that they had been there. All of a sudden, Chuer sensed something strange. She quickly turned her head around to see what it was, and Yuhao asked her if something was wrong. She informed him that she didn't know why, but it felt like there was something off with the place. Yuhao was shocked since there was not much that could make Chuer of all people feel off. She stated that she felt a little uncomfortable from deep within her soul, and that there had to be something extraordinary about being in the Sunset Forest. It felt like there was no means of fighting back, and no means of escape either. One could not even dare to look at the things around, since it struck a primal fear into their very being. She urged him that they should quickly get out of the place. If they kept moving forward, then they were definitely going to lose their lives. Yuhao didn't understand why she was acting like that. He ordered her to head back. She assumed that he was going to head back with her, and was relieved they were going to survive once they got out. Much to her disappointment, he was actually going in the opposite direction. She turned around and called out to him. His eyes could tell that he was fully intent on getting the immortal herb. She asked him if he hadn't just said they were going to head back. He told her she could head back by herself first. It was unnecessary for her to come here in the first place. He told her to take care on the way back and simply waved goodbye. Chuer did not understand who he was so intent on saving. She wondered if it was a family member, but recalled that he didn't have any family left. She clenched her fist and in the end decided she was going to go along with him. She told him to wait for her. The moment she caught up to him, he thanked her out of nowhere. She inquired what he was thanking her for. He declared that since she had decided to come along, he had decided that she was a friend. She asked him if he had never regarded her as his friend all this time. He explained himself, saying that he meant a trustworthy friend as well as a good friend. She could tell that the place was really dangerous, though, and wondered if this was really worth it. She didn't understand why there were people who valued the lives of others much more than their own. Over in the Clear Sky clan, Donger's uncle informed his friend that the seal had been broken. The man could not believe it and wondered if Yuhao had actually gotten so strong in such a short amount of time, or if he had actually just asked someone else to open it for him. Uncle told him that this was what he was worried about, but even if someone else had unlocked the seal for him, he still wouldn't have the strength or power to get the immortal herb. The man pointed out that Yuhao was very smart, and he would probably use one way or another to trick Donger. Uncle told him to forget it since the trail had already started. Whether or not he could achieve it depended on his fate. Over in the forest, Yuhao told Chuer that she was staring at him way too much. He stated that he was starting to feel weird and wanted her to stop. She tried convincing him that this trip was more dangerous than the last one, and asked if he really thought it was worth risking his life for. Yuhao immediately replied with a firm yes. He further expressed his feelings, saying that if she was not with him, then his life would become meaningless. Her life was way more important than his own in his heart. She was confused as to how he could say that. She questioned him, asking how someone else's life could be more important than his own. It seemed to her as if he had hit his head or something. He asked her why she was getting so frustrated. There was always someone who was at least more important to them than themselves in each of their lives. He expressed that if his mother was still alive, then she would have considered his life as the most important one. Chur realized that these were what people called emotions. She objected, stating that if they wanted to survive now, they had to do everything in their power to keep themselves alive. Yuhao looked at her and told her that everyone had only one life. She had always been talking about the laws of the jungle, so she should have known better than anyone else that they humans didn't follow those laws. If everyone started committing immoral acts just to survive and live, then there would be no difference between them and other animals. He further mentioned that they were neither animals nor soul beasts, but humans. Just then, he sensed something was wrong with her. She had always acted differently, and maybe it was because she had lived in the forest before and had experienced many dangers that she acted like this. Before moving on, he advised her not to think too much about what he had just said. Their journey into the forest continued. As we knew that Yuhao was someone who cherished his friends deeply and had risked his life for them numerous times. However, his feelings for Wang Donger was beyond simple friendship, and he was becoming more aware of that emotional gap between them. It was making him sad and emotional. He tried to explain why his feelings for Wang were different from his other friends. He opened up about the depth of his emotions and the fact that he was willing to make sacrifices for her, but it felt like she might not have understood him because she hadn't experienced love in the same way he had. Yuhao felt that, while she was important to him, her understanding of love and sacrifice might not match his. He said that maybe the reason she didn't understand his feelings was probably because she didn't have someone to love yet. While talking to Wang Chuer, he gave her the example of the parental love and how many sacrifices they made for their children. She told him to shut up and said that her parents had left her alone in that strange world. She then asked him if he had ever experienced the feeling of helplessness and loneliness and the fear of dying at any moment. She was not the type of person he thought she was, and her parents never took care of her. That was the reason she only loved herself. Sweat was dripping off from Yuhao's forehead, and he had no idea what to say. She then asked if they should get going and continue their journey to the destination.